Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. EQA Nostalgia here, and welcome to my WildStar First Impressions video. The reason why I decided to do this now is because WildStar is going to be going free to play in a couple of months, and one of my subscribers had said that there's a free trial going on, so I decided, what the hell, I'll check it out. I always wanted to check it out, but I didn't have the rig that could run it. But at the same time, the initial buy-in price of $60 plus the sub fee, it's kind of something that kept me away, and I'm willing to wager that kept a lot of people away from this game. And to be fair, the price did go down on the game. I'm not certain when, but right now you can pick it up for $10 or $20 digital, $10 for the retail box copy of the game, which is kind of strange. I guess you're paying for that convenience. But at any rate, I picked up the game. I picked up a trial for the game. I do actually plan on buying the box version of the game tomorrow for $10. There are incentives to doing that now. You can get a mount or some other like clothing option. But I've been pleasantly surprised by this game, and I made the mistake of listening to people when they said that it was basically World of Warcraft in space. It's not anything like that. At least combat-wise, it doesn't feel anything like World of Warcraft. If I had to sum up this game and just kind of like put it into a category, I would say it was like somebody took a game like Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank. They took the visual style of that, and then they took like maybe the combat system from something like Diablo, threw in a dash of like World of Warcraft for the way the world is, maybe, in the way the starting areas are, some of the questing mechanics, and also tossed in a little bit of Toe Jam and Earl Panic on Funkatron for good measure, which that probably won't make sense to most of you. It's kind of an old game, but that's what WildStar feels like to me. The one thing that does remind me of World of Warcraft are the two different factions that are in the game. We have the Exiles and the Dominion. The Exiles are like the good guys, the Dominion are like the bad guys, but it's really not too cut and dry. You can tell that the Dominion, they're definitely assholes, and they're trying to control everything, and the Exiles are just trying to get away from them. But the Exiles, they're not, they're kind of wild in their own way, but they're not like burning down forests and trying to assimilate the entire galaxy into their order. I do like the different races. They offer enough variety, I feel. And one of the things that I thought was kind of strange, is kind of like a throwback, is that only certain races can play as certain classes. And I know that's something the community has expressed that they want changed. People would like to be able to play as everything. But in terms of classes, we have the Warrior, the Engineer, the Esper, the Medic, the Stalker, and the Spellslinger. Warriors are self-explanatory. Engineers have a gun and they get some pets. Espers are kind of like your mages. And then of course you have Medics, and that's pretty self-explanatory, except these guys can dish out punishment. Stalkers are kind of like your rogues, and your Spellslingers are what you would expect them to be, except they do have guns. You would think they'd just be throwing spells, but they use guns, and they can also use a bit of magic, I believe. Like I said, I haven't really gotten too in depth with the game, but one of the things that's really stuck out to me is all the classes have like a DPS role. If you want to just be a DPS, you can, and then you can kind of sub out for healing with some of the classes or tanking. And the paths in this game are really interesting because it kind of gives you secondary missions that you can do. They each have their own different rewards, and I'm not going to get into detail about what those rewards are. They're kind of self-explanatory, except for scientists, they have like a lore kind of thing that they can pursue. But it's really interesting. I like the fact that they added that extra spin into it to further customize your experience. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to start in a tutorial zone, which is on board a ship. And it's not, most tutorials where you start a game, they're really long or just really boring. I didn't find it to be that way until I did it a couple of times, and thankfully you can skip that, and your character will start at an appropriate level with the appropriate gear on the planet. But it's a decent thing to go through, especially if it's your first time. I highly recommend going through the tutorial. It shows you basic stuff like how to run and jump and all of that. But it also gets you a little familiar with what you're going to be doing in terms of quests and your path. I think the most important thing is showing you what your path quests are going to be. But at any rate, it's not very long-winded. It doesn't last too long. It's pretty short. The Exile one is a little bit longer than the Dominion one. But yeah, don't skip it. It's pretty cool. It adds a little bit of lore in there. And once you've done it once on each faction, whatever, just go ahead and feel free to skip it. It doesn't matter at that point. Now, from each of the races that I've played, I have not played them all. I've only played about 4 of them. They each have their own unique starting area. They might be carried over into other races that I just haven't noticed because I haven't played them yet, but I really like that. I've always been a proponent for starting in a particular area that's specific to your race. I always like that with EverQuest Online Adventures. World of Warcraft got that right. I always loved that you started in, if you were a night elf, you started in the forest, and it just felt good. I like that. So they do that a little bit here. It's not so much a starting city, but it's an area that's kind of indicative of your species. The Gronox, for example, they kind of have like a barbarian feel to them. They're these big rock guys, and they start in a place that's kind of familiar to like Hollis or something like that, where like a barbarian class would start from. Hollis was a place in EverQuest where the barbarians were from. And then of course you have the Aran, and they're really into nature. They're kind of like the hippies. So they start in like a forested area where they have to figure out what's going on. There's something wrong with the nature there. The forest is kind of in a bit of trouble. I don't want to ruin anything, but it's nice to start in an area that's reflective in your race. It's just really nice, and a lot of MMOs don't do that anymore, and I think that's a shame. So the first thing I noticed as soon as I hopped into the game, obviously, are the graphics. I love the character models. I've always been a person who's really into stylized art. I know there's people out there that can't stand it. They think it looks childish or whatever. I'm not like that. I love colorful stuff. I absolutely love it. I don't understand anybody who doesn't like anything colorful. I just, the whole realistic thing, if I want to see realistic, I'll just go outside. You know what I mean? The graphics are amazing outside. Everything is so realistic out there. When I play a game, I want color, I want personality, and I want things to just pop. I want things to have that certain spark that tells me, yes, you're playing a game, you're not in the real world right now. I like that, and I really love the style that they use. It feels like a cartoon. It just looks great. Graphically, it looks just amazing, and it's easy to run on your system because it's not too intense. Where a lot of these games that are more realistic, they're harder on the hardware. they're tougher on your hardware, I should say, and it's just I don't know. I prefer the stylized art. I know a lot of people don't, but whatever. It shouldn't be really a determining factor. Aesthetics are something that's nice, but the gameplay is what matters. And obviously that's the second thing I noticed. As soon as I started playing the game, I was just blown away by how it doesn't feel like an MMO. It feels more like an action platforming game. You can roll out of the way. You can roll to the left or the right, back and forward. You can double jump, which is something that you usually see in platformers like Jak and Daxter, for example. So I thought that was very refreshing. There's even a sprint button, which kind of gives it that first-person or third-person shooter feeling, where you have a sprint meter and you can sprint. So you can tell they tried to break away from the traditional style of MMOs, but at the same time, we do have developers here from EverQuest and World of Warcraft, and they did put a lot of the old-school stuff into the game, and you can see that just in the way that the quests play out. You're doing fetch quests and stuff like that, but they're not as annoying. They feel refreshing to me, and maybe it's the way they've executed it. I can't really explain it. It probably has something to do with the fact that I don't have a million spells, which is something that EverQuest 2 did, and I can't stand. I don't want all those spells. Okay, I never liked that. I came from a game. My first MMO was EverQuest Online Adventures, where there were a fair amount of spells, but you only had access to a certain amount of them. They didn't overwhelm you with that shit. So they give you 8 spells, and then there's your racial spell that you can use. And because there's not so many spells, it doesn't feel like you're staring at cooldowns. The actions actually play out in front of you. Like there's a meter on the ground, or not a meter, but an indicator on the ground that shows the cone of attack that you have and how far it reaches. Same thing with enemies. You have to react and get out of the way. You can't just stand there and play a cooldown mini game. They said that in the game, actually, I think during the tutorial, which I thought was funny. Now, as much as I love the traditional stuff and the old hardcore shit, I am looking forward to Pantheon, which is going to be kind of like a throwback to the EverQuest days. I do like that stuff, but at the same time, I want something new. I want something that breaks the bonds and takes the genre into a different direction. Staring at cooldowns is fine, but it's not something I want to do in every single MMO I ever play. You know, I don't want to just press buttons and stand still. I like the reactive combat. I like the way it feels. It's very refreshing. That's the only way I can really explain it, is it's refreshing, and it's got an action feel to it, and I absolutely love that. It doesn't put you to sleep, because there's been times where I've played MMOs like EverQuest or World of Warcraft, and I start nodding off at the keyboard because all I'm doing is just waiting for cooldowns to pop up, and doing your rotations and shit like that. As much fun as that is, it's something that just gets played out after a while. I've been doing it for years, and I know a lot of MMO veterans kind of feel the same way. I think it's just time for things to change a little bit. And in the MMO space, I think there's plenty of room for different styles. I don't think we have to absolutely have that old school style, but the World of Warcraft thing has gone on for so long with the cooldowns and the traditional style. It basically built off of what EverQuest was doing, and it fucking numbs your brain after a while, man, where it just gets really, really boring. So it's nice to see that they do that. In tasks that would normally get on your nerves, like I said, like collecting a bunch of shit, it just doesn't feel like it's too much of a fetch quest. Maybe that's because I've just started. Maybe it'll start to wear thin after a while. I don't know, but right now it feels great. The environments feel great. The game has a lot of atmosphere to it, a lot of different colors going on, a lot of different backdrops. So it's very refreshing. I'm going to keep saying that word, because that's what WildStar is to me. It's refreshing. Now, I've seen some reviews that say that towards endgame, or when you get into the endgame, things start to get really difficult. However, I've also seen videos that say all of that has gone away. There were problems with grinding where it became a huge time sink just to get things done. I'm not entirely certain of the specifics, but it's one of the things that drove people away. The end game, people did not like it at all, and they started to leave in droves from what I'm understanding. There were a lot of servers, and then they dropped all the servers for like 2 mega servers, and right now there's not a lot of people playing. But when it goes free to play, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to hop into this game, and I think they're going to stay. As long as they don't lock stuff behind a paywall too much, where you have to buy bag space and you have to do this and that. As long as they keep it mostly aesthetic with the shop, then I think things are going to work out great for this game. Because as a subscription-based game, right now, from what I've understood from people saying the end game and everything, all things considered, it's a great game. But it got off on the wrong foot, so a lot of people left. When it goes free to play, it's going to be like a re-release, and it's going to bring more interest into the game. People are going to come back that used to play it because they have nothing to lose. So if the end game is what people are saying it is, it's got good end game, and I know the leveling is great. The leveling game is awesome. I've heard the housing is amazing, so I'm probably going to make videos further down the line once it goes free to play. But if it retains everything that people are saying it has and fixes all the things that people said have been fixed, I see no reason why this won't become very, very popular as a free-to-play game. Now, before I wrap this up, because it is just a first impressions video, there's not much I have to say about it yet. Before I wrap it up, I do want to point out that controllers work with this game, and they work beautifully with this game. It's not like trying to use a controller for like EverQuest or something like that, or World of Warcraft in a game where it just doesn't, to me, just wouldn't be viable. There's not a lot of spells, so you can easily bind them all to your buttons and then just hold the shoulder button and get access to the other 4 abilities. As a matter of fact, there's a program you can download that will automatically have everything on the controller preset for you, and it works great. It works absolutely great. The only thing that I can't really figure out how to do with it, I don't know if you can, is zoom in and out and interact with quests and stuff like that. To click on the quests and things that you might have to click on in the world. I still use my mouse for that, but everything else works flawlessly with a controller. It feels great because, like I said, it plays like an action platforming game. So it really, I don't know why they didn't have it built into the game. You have to download like a third-party software to use it. But this is something I can see being on consoles, and I'm kind of confused why they haven't launched it on a console, because this is a very console-friendly game. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. If this is your first time to my channel, I ask that you please subscribe. There will be more content on WildStar in the future. Please take a moment to leave a like, because it helps other people to see my videos and it helps my channel to grow. I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.